Hello, everyone. It's Warborg again, and not trying to get too ranty on here, but I wanted to give my opinion on giving a 2 weeks notice. And most jobs I've had in the past, I have given a 2 week notice, and my thing is, like, the reason I would do that is because I would always feel like I would need them as a reference, at some point. But here's the bad thing why I also don't like giving a 2 week notice is because most of the time when I switch jobs, I give a 2 week notice to my current employer, and then it's like right after I'm done with my 2 weeks, like the next day, I have to go start the new job, which I don't like. I like having a little mini sabbatical, in between jobs, like maybe a few days, maybe even a week, I do enjoy having a little downtime. I've made that mistake before, when I worked security, way back then, like before I moved to San Antonio. I didn't have a new job lined up, but I did move like the day after I finished my last 2 weeks, over at my old job. This was like back in 2016, which really screwed me because I was trying to get a full week off, not just I wanted a day or two where I could go fishing and, kind of like enjoy a little bit of time before I go make this big move down here. Back in 2016, I planned on, which I did. I was planning on moving over here and starting a new life, from nothing, just my backpack and my suitcase. And so what screwed me moving over here initially was the only thing I had was my license, but I didn't have enough time to go get my Social Security card or birth certificate. And I didn't really know much about the civilian world at that point because, I was also still transitioning out of the military. So, luckily, it was easier for me to get my documentations like when I moved over here, but it was just a hassle. Some jobs wouldn't hire me because I didn't have all of my documentations. I didn't have my Social Security card. I didn't have my birth certificate. There was even a temp service that even needed me to have my high school diploma, which I didn't have. So I had to pull so many strings just to get all of those, but I digress. I've had a job, like the job I permanently had when I first moved over here. I worked there for about 4 years, and I got to a point where I just got tired of that job. So I went out looking for a new one, whenever I had time. And the only thing that sucked about, putting in that, it wasn't even a 2 week notice. I gave them like a 1 week notice because I told them I said, look, I'm not saying F this job, but I have to get out of here ASAP because I can't handle it anymore. Because I was like way beyond burned out with this job. It was just killing my soul. I was like waking up dreading. I was waking up pissed off every day, knowing that, I wasn't going to have any of my own me time. Pretty much my whole life was just work and sleep. No, I barely even had time to eat at this job, and if I did eat, it'd be like driving to my next house. I used to work for a pest control company long time ago. But I ended up getting a job working with sprinkler systems. But the only thing that sucked was I went to that job the day after I finished the pest control job. So I already went to the new job already burned out without any like break or anything like that in between. So that really sucked. My last job, I know I did a video a couple years ago where I said I put in my 2 week notice for a new job. This is the same job I'm talking about, like my first printer job, where I was talking to one of my coworkers who I was a little bit closer with. I'm just gonna call him Matthew, but he, you know, I was talking about like looking for a new job because last year, even back back when my fiance was still alive, I mean, you know, it wasn't really the job that was bad. It was really the distance because I would be spending like 9-10 hours at the job and then 3 hours a day, driving back and forth to work. So there were some days I didn't get home until like 8 o'clock at night. And that really sucked. And I didn't like that too much. And plus, not only that, it was just tearing up all my vehicles. I mean, I was having to go to the shop every couple of months because of all the mileage I was putting on them. And they were just breaking down so quickly. And it was just a battle, back and forth. Well, my buddy Matthew, he said, every job that I've put a 2-week notice in, I'd work for a couple of days and then say, hey, we don't need you. If you want to, not work the full 2 weeks, it's fine. You can go ahead and leave. And I'm like, I wish I had an employer that was that nice, because most of the time when I gave a 2-week notice, they normally would have me work the full 2 weeks, which I don't feel like I'm going to do that anymore. I mean, unless it's like a really, really good job and, I've had a good rapport with that company, then that's a maybe. But if it's like a company that's like not very appreciative, not very respectful, I'm like, you're lucky if I even give you any notice at all. But I'm not doing this, putting the 2 weeks, working the 2 weeks and then having to go to a new job the following day. I said, I ain't doing that anymore. I've kind of learned, over the years, like with our here in America with our toxic work culture, it's kind of like, if you put yourself first, you're looked at as being selfish. You're like, oh, you're not a team player. You're trying to be an individual. You're selfish and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, let them think that, fuck them. Because it's like, I'm like, I look at it like this, like if I quit a job, I'm like, buddy, I'm probably never going to see you again. I don't give a fuck at this point. Sorry for the language, but y'all get what I mean. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and, get ready for work. So I just finished my vacation and yeah, wasn't long enough, but hey, it was needed. But as soon as I get off work today, I'm probably just going to rack out, I'm going to sleep as much as I can until winter happens because knock on wood, summer this year was actually not too bad. Still hot, but not as bad as like last year or especially the year before. So I'll catch y'all at a later time. Bye bye.